Fight fans are back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today I got a returning guest to the show. This time getting ready, making his UFC return in Australia. He is the captain. He is Mr. Jonathan Micallef. Jonathan, what's up, my friend?
Hey, how you doing, brother? Yeah, just as you said, man, just been preparing for this the last 8 to 10 weeks. Been absolutely grinding it out, killing myself. And we're here. We're here a week out from weigh-in day now, so all the hard work's done. Now's the fun part, make weight and go in there and do my thing, do my job. I can't wait.
You know, the first time we talked was actually the first time you were supposed to fight Oban Elliott, and like 24, 48 hours later, the fight got canceled. What was that like?
Yeah, that was actually pretty rough, man. Not having a pullout before, especially so close to the fight, it was new territory for me. But look, man, like at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. I ended up fighting him in February later the next year and got the win. Yeah, it was, I think, good that I've experienced that now, and I know now that these things can happen, in such a wild sport that there's so many different things that you prepare for. That wasn't one of them, but I'm not glad it happened, but it has happened and it is what it is. And, God has a plan, and everything happens for a reason.
You know, your last time out, you did get to fight Oban. What a fight, brother. A lot of you battled through some adversity in there. Got a huge finish in Australia. What was that moment like?
It was unreal, man. Like, there was just pure emotion after that, taking him out, putting him to sleep, actually. So it's actually the second time I've done that in the UFC, which is pretty cool to put two people completely unconscious. But yeah, phenomenal, man. I'm just glad that I had to battle through a little bit of adversity there. Like you want to just take a guy out clean slate, but sometimes battling through that adversity, having to make adjustments, it just adds to experience. It adds to your knowledge base as a martial artist and a fighter.
Do you feel that fighting is more mental than it is physical?
100%, yeah. Especially MMA, I think, because it's such a chaotic sport. You got from the environment of the crowd and the moment, and then outside of that, you got it's such a dynamic sport. You can grapple, strike. It's 100% mental more than it is physical, and I think that's why the most experienced fighters are the ones that tend to do the best. Look at Volk; he beats people with his mind, with his skills and his adjustments more than his physicality.
Absolutely. You're kind of cool. It's going to be your third fight in the UFC now. Third fight fighting in Australia. And you're seeing this with a few other guys. Colby Thickness, he gets a bunch of Australian fights. Cam Rouston gets a bunch of Australian fights. Is it pretty cool to be able to fight in your home country?
Yeah, man, we are so lucky to be able to do that. I mean, like, to only have a couple-hour flight, and you get all the other benefits of it, the home crowd. I'm very lucky and blessed to be able to only fight in my own country. But at the same time, man, if it did get offered to me to fight overseas, 100%, I would take that without a doubt, because as I said earlier, it's experience. To get booed, to not have to be so close to home, to have a longer flight, to adjust to the time and to the weather. These are all things that I take into consideration in my next, and who knows where or when that will be. But yeah, I'm so lucky to fight in front of my own home crowd.
When you look at it, mixed martial arts has grown and evolved all over the place, but we're really starting to see this in Australia now. There's so many Aussie fighters in the UFC, so many events in Australia. Obviously, some big Australian guys been around for a while. You have your Volkanovskis, Whitakers, you have your Della Maddalenas, Tai Tuivasa. What do those guys mean for fighters in Australia?
I feel like for us, those guys have paved the way, like 10, 15 years ago, but even before Rob, there was no way to get to the UFC for Aussie fighters. It was just it was a pipe dream for a lot of people. If you would say you want to make it to the UFC, everyone would just smirk at you. Whereas now it's right there. There's a clear pathway for guys from regional scene, even from amateurs to pro, going all the way up. There's a path. And I think that for everyone just is what's fueling the fire and what's making the region so good at the moment, because we all know it's possible, and all the guys that otherwise might not have pushed it are now really pushing it and sending it. So yeah, those guys are like the foundation of the Australian martial arts scene.
You know, you're a lot of fun to watch fight, and I think one of the reasons, man, is you're becoming such a well-rounded martial artist. Obviously, you have that grappling, you have that wrestling. You've shown that you have the hands as well. For you, is one of the biggest goals to try to get as well-rounded as possible. Keep it going, keep it going.
Yeah, man, 100%. I look at martial arts as an art, you know. So for me to be good in all areas is what it is to be a real martial artist, and that's what I strive to be. So in camp we focus on sharpening the tools in our best areas, but outside of camp I'm covering all bases. And I think the best way to do that is to wrestle with wrestlers, to box with the boxers, and to sort of get the little nuances that you don't see when you mix it all together. But then once you work individual specific sports, you can do that. Yeah, no, I think that I'm getting there. You know what I mean? Every time a little bit, I'm leveling up, and you guys are hopefully seeing that. And next week, you're going to see another level up from Jonathan Micallef.
You know, you refer to yourself to something that not everybody calls themselves in this day and age as a martial artist. For you, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
I think it is the real part of martial arts is the art aspect of it, I guess, you know, like to not just fucking go out there and scrap and fight, you know. It's we're professional fighters, we're professional martial artists. For me, it's about showing the art, showing the small details that really make the big differences in fighting. And you know, I've probably most of my career in the regional scene known to be more of an athletic, physical, raw guy. But as I get into it, and as I'm coming up through the UFC now, you're starting to see a much more refined version.
Absolutely. You know, the life of a professional fighter is crazy. There's so many highs, there's so many lows before you make the UFC. You're waking up early, you're staying up late, you're not making Conor McGregor money. You sacrifice everything just to get to this point. You've experienced this journey. How do you think you have grown and evolved from it?
I think that through the fighting is your chance to grow and evolve, like as a as in the performance side of things. I guess you get more experience at that dealing with the crowd, cutting weight. But through over the years, it's just about trying to stay on the line, you know, trying to stay on the journey and understand that like it's a step by step thing, and it's a very slow trudge. You know, I didn't make any money until probably my 15th fight, so it's like. I did it because I loved it and that made it easy, but at the same time, it's still very difficult, especially you got a family to provide for. You got all the naysayers around you saying, man, what are you doing? Just do work a normal 9 to 5. But um, yeah, it's a mix of all things, but it's a valuable and a good one.
You know, you have a little one of your own. What do you want them to take away from this crazy journey you've been on?
I want him to take out that no matter what you set your mind to, it's achievable. You know, I don't want him to be the type of kid to not look up to the stars and try and shoot for him. I want him to go hard, go up, and if you fail, good, you're more experienced. You know, you've learned a lesson.
Absolutely. So you're getting ready, making your return, taking on Themba Gorimbo. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
I feel like he's a very physical, very raw opponent. He's powerful and comes out. There's been some moves looking over some film that I was like, dude, this should not work, you know, but he makes it work. So I've sort of tried to prepare as best as possible for these situations that I'm going to find myself in, where he might not technically beat the position, but he'll still beat it through raw physicality. Is a good guy. You know, he came from a hard upbringing and stuff. I had a little bit of a look in his backstory. Good for him. You know what I mean? I if I wasn't fighting him, I'd want nothing but the best for him. But he's in the way of me and my dream now, so I've got to take him out, and I've got to keep climbing those ranks.
You know, fight fans pretty excited for this one because when you look at both you guys fight, both you guys like to go for the finish. You'd like to try to get the job done. There's like $100,000 bonuses on the line in this day and age. Could you see this one potentially not going the distance?
Honestly, I don't. Yeah, I don't think this one will go to distance. There's just too much forward pressure coming from both sides. You know, I've never seen him really take a step back in many of his fights, and I don't do that either. So it's definitely gonna be a finish, and I think in the second round, but we'll have to wait and see.
You know, it's crazy. It's only your third fight in the UFC, but you're starting to get some pretty big names. Obviously, Oban Elliott, another really big top prospect that you took out. Gorimbo, a guy who's fought top 15 competition, probably just outside of the top 15 right now. You know, with a big win over him, do you think that really pulls yourself upwards in that division?
100%. Yeah, I think that after a win against Gorimbo, I could potentially be looking at that top 15 at those ranked guys, which is exciting. This is what I've always dreamed of. I've always sort of broken down and thought, how would I fight those guys? And it used to seem pretty far away, but now it's right there. It's only like two to three fights away. But this is my dream. This is what I've always wanted. So, you gotta be appreciative. I got a lot of gratitude for that.
Now being 27 years old, you really feel like you're starting to step into the prime of your career?
100%. I do. I feel like I started this sport quite late when I was 19, so I've only been doing it about 8 years now, give or take. And now I'm really starting to see and feel the tools that we used to work back in the day, and not just how to do them better, but where can I apply them? And there's a heap of stuff that's just starting to click now. It's just all starting to make sense, and I can sort of look at the sport a little bit more holistically, all round, from trying to find spots where you can counter and stay safe, and on the opposite end, expose where the other guy overreaches. So I definitely feel like I'm coming into my prime, but I think that you're not going to see the best of me until I retire, because I'm just going to keep getting better and better, man.
Absolutely. You're starting to become a name for yourself. A lot of people, obviously, in Australia know who you are. You're starting to create a U.S. fan base as well. Is it pretty cool now seeing messages on Instagram, younger fighters looking up to you, having a bunch of fans, people wanting a piece of you? Is that a pretty cool feeling?
It is unreal, man. It is so cool. Look, it's not why I do this sport. I do it because I love it, but it definitely makes the squeeze worth the juice that little bit more, knowing that people look up to me, and there's people that tell me that I'm inspirational and stuff, and that for me is like, how, man? I'm just out here working, grinding, wrestling, doing this and that. But to find that people get inspiration from that, and that helps them to reach their goals, I think that right there is the most sweetest thing of all of this.
Absolutely. Obviously now going into your third fight. Have you had a moment since being in the UFC, since being on the Contender Series, where it was kind of like one of those pinch me moments? Like, I can't believe I'm here, whether it be meeting somebody, seeing something, being at an event, any one of those moments that really allowed you to look back and reflect on the journey?
Yeah, a heap of times, to be honest, especially in my UFC debut. I fought over in Sydney, and the UFC flew down a heap of stars. I mean, Alex Pereira was there. Oliveira was up there cornering one of his boys, and meeting and seeing those people and realizing that, hey, these are just other guys that are doing the same thing I've done. They're on their journey. They're just a little bit further on it than I am. But there was a funny story, actually, post weigh-in in Sydney, when I made my debut. Got my wife to go microwave my meal. So she had the PI meal, went to go microwave it, and Alex Pereira was there waiting behind her, and she just dropped the bag and brought me back my food cold. And I was like, "Babe, what happened? Like, why is my food cold? You went to go microwave it." And it was because Pereira was behind her with his whole entourage, and she just got a bit freaked out. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll eat my cold pasta for Pereira." Yeah, that makes sense. If it was any other man, probably not. But it's definitely a lot of pinch me moments. But it's starting to feel a lot more like normal now.
I think another really cool thing that you got to be part of, obviously, you got to find the same card as Alexander Volkanovski headlining against Diego Lopez. Was that pretty cool to see him go out and do his thing, kind of be part of the night?
Yeah, man, definitely. I think the biggest thing for that was just seeing how he carried himself throughout the fight week. There was no pressure. Like, he just seemed so nonchalant, and just like, yeah, he's in here, another day in the office. And that for me was a really good point to look on and to sort of take into my own life and my own fighting style, because it's sort of like, if you can treat it like that and you're not beaten by the moment, and just that will mean that you're going to put your best foot forward when you do fight, and you're going to be cerebral. You're going to be seeing and thinking about all the things you should be doing, and not about what's going to happen if, and the what ifs. So yeah, and he's a phenomenal bloke. I've been down to Wollongong to train down with the boys. He was actually in Thailand when that did happen, so I missed out on it. But he came up to me afterwards and said he'd love to train, and to get word like that from one of the greats is an incredible point, and there's so much I can learn from him, and I really look forward to it.
In this day and age, social media is such a big thing. Every single fighter's got an Instagram, they got an X, they got a Facebook. A lot of crazy stuff on social media. So before I get into this, all fans are good, but now we have a term called the casual fan. These are the people who like to yell, twist them, and you know what? They type some crazy stuff. They say some crazy stuff. Since you've been in the UFC, have you seen any lines about yourself, any memes, any gifs about yourself that kind of made you laugh or kind of stick there and be like, what the heck?
Yeah, a heap, especially after the last fight. I had so many people messaging me telling me you got lucky. And I was just like, I got lucky. Like, dude, I took the guy out. I submitted him. But there's going to be haters, like you said, no matter what. They're going to be there. But at the same time, there's been probably like a 30x of support and good messages from people, and I'm trying to focus on that more than the negative ones. But you gotta just laugh at the other ones, man, because at the end of the day, like they were just rooting for the other guy, and it went the other way.
Absolutely. All right. Before we wrap up here, I want to go through some big fights coming up to get your predictions on some of these big, massive matchups. So the main event of your night is an absolute banger. You got Carlos Prates taking on Jack Della. Who wins this thing?
That's a tough fight, man. I think stylistically it's one of the harder ones for Jack, but just with Jack's defensiveness on the feet, I think that he's going to be able to stay defensively tight. I think he's going to be able to pull this one out, man. I don't see this going the distance. It's going to be a finish on either way, but I think that Jack, if he can implement his grappling and stay defensively tight on the feet, he can take Carlos out.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the co-main event as well. You got a younger guy from the area on that team, on that fight, Quillen Salkrill, fighting Beneil Dariush. What happens there?
Man, strap it back to behind Quillen, because he's strap a rocket behind Quillen because he's just going to keep exploding, man. I think that he's just phenomenal, all-rounded, and he's just so composed in there. Even with he's got a massive moment, short notice fight, does not let anything get in the way, and does what he does. I think that Quillen's going to be able to take him out. Tough fight, probably definitely the toughest in he's ever faced, but I just think Quillen's ready for it, man.
It's really interesting when you look at Quillen's run. When you look at yourself, you look like a guy like Cam Rouston. I see the same potential. You're going to be both, I think it's 3-4 fights each at this point. Do you see yourself kind of going on that same trajectory as Quillen? Do you think it's possible?
100%, man. Yeah, look, Quillen and I, we both debuted in the same night in Sydney when Strickland fought Duplessis. And unfortunately for myself, I just wasn't able to turn it around as quickly as possible. But it's just going to be, I think you're going to see the same thing, just over a longer span of time with me, man. Like I'm also young and developing, and I have all the skills. I just need to put them together, get fights, and then you'll see. I'm going to get there, man.
Absolutely. UFC 328 coming up here in Newark, New Jersey. You got Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland, 185-pound title. Who wins this thing?
Man, that is a tough one. Like we've seen Strickland. I think it was early in his welterweight days. He was able to get taken down quite easily, and then since going up to middleweight, he's been able to use his range and stick and move really well. But I think with the pressure of Khamzat, he's not going to be able to do the same thing. I think that Khamzat's going to be able to take him out in this one. I really do. Maybe in the third or fourth later on. But we'll see. Hey, crazy sport. But I'd go with Khamzat if I had to put my house on it.
Co-main event on that one, another title fight. Got Tetsuro Taira trying to get that belt off of Josh Van. Who wins that?
Oh, yeah. I think Josh Van's on his rise now. I think he's going to stay with the title for a long time. I think Joshua Van's going to come out victorious in that.
Absolutely. All right, the last ones I want to talk about. We got a huge one, June 14th, UFC Freedom at the White House. What a card this is. We'll go to the co-main event. It's Chama. It's Alex Pereira. He's taking out Cyril Gane. Who wins that?
Man, I don't know. Everyone's saying Chama's going to smoke him. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about this, but Cyril is good. I think that one of the biggest things you need to think about is Cyril has moved around at heavyweight, and he's been super light on his feet. He's basically a ballerina. Will Pereira still have the same movement that he does and in a lot of divisions? Like, will Cyril give him the sort of the respect that he normally receives, or will he just sort of fight that firefight with him? I think Cyril might be able to take this one out, man. I really do.
Main event, absolute banger here. We got Justin Gaethje, Ilia Topuria making the return. Who wins that?
I'm a massive, massive Ilya fan. He's every fight. He's probably your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. You know, like everybody loves him. I've got to go with Ilya. He's just too clean, too technical at this point. He's absolute clinical fighter.
You get a lot of inspiration. You get any momentum off of watching the big fights like this?
100%, man. It's massive, especially guys like Ilya that sort of paved a new way for the new martial artist. And just seeing the things he does, the setups he's got, the traps he sets, I have massive inspiration and just like trying to, you want to try and implement that sort of stuff in, but make it your own. And yeah, I really look up to guys like that and try to dissect as much as I can from them.
Obviously, your next step of business, your total attention is on Gorimbo. After you beat O'Bon Elliott, you called out one of the top gatekeepers in that division, to Mr. Neil Magny. With a win, we can maybe going back to that well for Neil?
Yeah, man. If that's out there and that the UFC want me to fight him, 100%, I'll take that fight. But at this point, as you said, man, like I try not to look too far ahead. I've got a massive problem in front of me in the name of Gorimbo. So once I get that done, then we can go on the mic and speak. But up until then, I've got the hardest task of my career to take out.
How much fun are you having right now on this journey?
If I was to scale it from a 1 to a 10, I'd probably say 9.5, man. Like I'm really loving it. It's just, this is my dream, you know, and like some days it gets hard and you start to drag your feet a little bit, but then I need to remind myself, man, this is what you've always wanted. Like who am I to drag my feet when this has been my dream for so many years? And here I am, I'm in the UFC. I'm winning fights. I'm fighting in front of the Australian crowd. I mean, dude, I'm so grateful that I'm here. This is the dream, and I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. All right, Jono, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome May 2nd when you make your return to UFC against Themba Gorimbo?
Oh, and in a perfect world, man, I put another unconscious body out on that UFC mat. That would be pretty cool to do that. But I think there's going to be a TKO. I think we're going to find the finish, find the pressure, and it's gonna show.
You know, since we're fighting in Australia here with a big knockout victory, could we see maybe like a shoey after the fight?
Yeah, man. Hey, if there's a boot big enough, I'll be drinking out of it because I've got a big thirst.
There you go. Well, Jonathan, man, thank you so much for taking time out of the fight camp. I know we're right around the corner, but I really appreciate it. I can't wait to watch you do your thing, brother.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. That's it for us. Damn, Carl Peruzza. He is the captain. He is Jono. He is Jonathan Micallef. You can watch him May 2nd, fighting in the UFC against Themba Gorimbo. Take care, fight fans.
Let's go.